Recently, I had the privilege to interview Jeff Cox, one of the co-authors of the global bestseller The Goal, together with Eliyahu Goldratt. If you haven't read this book, I really recommend you do, because by many it is claimed it is the best business book ever, and I completely agree with it. The concept here is about the theory of constraints, which will definitely change your business, but can also change your life. So it is well worth the read. In this interview, you will find out how the story came together, what was it like working with Eliyahu Goldratt, whether Jeff himself expected this to be a global bestseller, and also at the end, please stay tuned because I've got a surprise for you. So today I'm with Jeff Cox, the co-author of the iconic book, The Goal. The book that many, if not all of us, think is the best business book ever.
Well, shucks, guy. Thank you.
It is a book that literally changes everything. And if you haven't read it, I'll really recommend it. It's The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt and Jeff Cox. So, Jeff, how did it all start? How did you become a writer?
A writer?
A writer, yeah.
That's what I always wanted to become. From teenage years on. And then, I went to work for a PR agency in Pittsburgh. And that's when I started writing professionally. I wrote a lot of scripts, video scripts, back in the day.
What kind of videos were they?
They were industrial videos. I did a lot of work for Westinghouse back when Westinghouse was still a good company. But then there was a program that Westinghouse put out for managers that, it was, and I would script it and then go with the crew and we'd record it. The equipment was a lot more rudimentary than what you have here. Although it was all professional equipment and so on.
Yeah.
I was vice president ultimately, and I just really didn't want to do the PR thing anymore. I just wanted to write, and so I resigned. Did a lot of freelancing. Still did a lot of work with Westinghouse. If anything, I did more. And that's how I met Eliyahu Goldratt, was through Westinghouse.
But did you write anything before you met Goldratt, or was that your first go at writing a business novel?
No, I never wrote. I never wrote a business novel before. I met Goldratt and started working with him.
Okay, I thought you had a lot of episodes of writing things, and then suddenly you went into writing a proper full-blown book with Goldratt.
No, I was working with Westinghouse on a lot of different things. Executive speeches, video scripts, video production. And it was only after I had gotten away, once I'd resigned and started freelancing, that I met Goldratt.
And how did you meet him?
Westinghouse had a quality and productivity center, and it was a place where new ideas were explored and promoted to make Westinghouse more competitive. And it worked to some extent, but until they got the wrong batch of managers in there. So anyway, Goldratt was giving a lecture. It was a full room. It was maybe 30 or 40 people in there. And I was there to write down what he said or get the gist of what he said and then turn it into something that they could send out to other managers, to managers.
Was he talking about the theory of constraints?
Yes. Yeah. And that was the first I had ever heard of such a thing. He was a very charming guy, good sense of humor. I talked to him very briefly, then went home and wrote up what I was being paid to write. And then Goldratt got a copy of it, and this he said that, and he tracked me down, tried to find out where I was. I was at that point living in Connecticut. His business was based in Connecticut, so it was the logistics worked pretty well. He called me up and said, "Come on down," and so I did.
So was your summary also written as a novel, or was it just
no? There was no business novel at that time from hardly anybody. Although Peter Drucker, he wrote or attempted to write a business novel about I can't remember the exact subjects, but anyway, it was about management.
Okay.
I don't think that ever caught on, but well, maybe it did, but I just don't know. Anyway, so Goldratt, this very nice compliment, said that when other people write about his ideas, he finds a conceptual error usually in the first paragraph. And with me, he got to page 4 before he found one. It wasn't a very long document. It was maybe 10 pages, something like that. So I was rather flattered by that. So, and we were not, in the beginning, we were not talking about writing fiction. But he knew that I mentioned him. That's what I ultimately wanted to do, was be a novelist. So we had a couple of meetings. I wrote a few things, preliminary things for him. And then he had a crazy schedule. And so it was at night, we were in the evening. And he said, what about writing fiction about a story? He's the one who suggested it. And I was skeptical. I said, I'm not sure I can do that. I don't know. But then I went, home, and I wrote the first chapter and delivered it to him, and he liked it. And so that's how the business fiction all came to being.
Were you on fire back then? Did you feel that this is exactly what you were dreaming of
No.
all your life?
No. No, not at all. I wanted to be Hemingway or Faulkner or one of those.
But you created a new genre, business novels.
Yeah. Well, it had been done before, but it wasn't well done. Wasn't done well. As we went through the project, it became more and more clear that this was something. And
so how long did it take you to write The Goal?
I think it was actually about 15 months, something like that. But there's a lot of that was start to finish, and there was stuff that was not. There were times when he'd be in Israel, and so I couldn't really do anything.
But was it smooth sailing for you? Like you knew exactly what you would be writing, or did you have moments where you were just like stuck and you couldn't?
Oh, definitely moments when I was stuck or had to figure things out. This was complicated material, and so it took a lot of figuring out to get it right.
But that's the thing. That's why this book is so genius, because it's complicated material but presented in a very friendly way. So that's the reason why it succeeded, I guess.
That seemed to be my gift. I don't know.
It is. Yeah. So, and how did you find working with Goldratt? Because you watch some videos on YouTube, and he seems, or there are hints that he's quite a harsh person.
He was. He's passed on now, but yeah, he could be, and often was, very difficult.
Did you have to calm down situations with the emotions involved?
Well, we generally got along well through the project, but then, as I say, he could be very difficult and very self-centered, very childish, actually. But he was unquestionably a genius. He was a brilliant man. And that's at least in part why I hung in there. Also, he was paying me, so
Quite
he
important.
wasn't paying me a lot, but he was paying me.
Yeah.
So,
And in terms of reviews, when you were sending him some materials, was he swift in his response, or did he drag along?
he was relatively swift. Having worked with a lot of business people at this point, he was kind of in the middle, or maybe even quicker than the others, than people I'd be working with later. But that was a frustration, is, I'd have to wait a couple weeks for him to get back to me. And by then I'd probably lost my train of thought, so I'd have to start, backtrack. And I was also revising as I was writing new material. So he would comment, I would do the revisions, and then push forward with new material. So.
But then, as a creative writer, do you write from 9 to 5 each day, or when you're on it, when you're in the zone, you just continue writing like there's no tomorrow?
I've found over the years there are about 4 good hours for writing. So it can't be a full day. It just doesn't work. I'd be busy with other things, but typically I would write from 9 or 10 in the morning till early afternoon, mid-afternoon, something like that.
So you're not a night owl where you sit at night and type.
Actually, I was something like that way back when, but the night sessions were when I was working on my own material, my own fiction. So
yeah, and then the beauty of the book is that because there's a story, how did you come up with the characters and the plot itself?
Well, I've been working with business people for quite a while at that point. 7, 8 years. And it was, and so none of the characters are, copies of anybody in real life. But I knew pretty much how managers think and what they're looking for and so on. So it just evolved, just came to mind.
But then when are those moments, like, you must have like an epiphany or something, where you're sitting somewhere and you suddenly come up with this idea of how to add someone into the book?
It's seldom, an instant thing. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there's a a flash of inspiration, the light, in the room, changes. No, I'm kidding. But, sometimes it's like that. A lot of times it's just, you got to work through things, and it's real work.
But obviously the story comes from you, so there must be, one way or the other, your own life experiences.
To some extent, yeah.
And how about Herbie? How did that story evolve?
Well, Goldratt gave me the concept of, what was he calling it then? The terminology changed over the years, but there was statistical dependency and statistical fluctuations. So he explained that, and then I was trying to think, and I had been a Boy Scout in my youth, and I had done a lot of hiking and so forth. And when you have a whole troop, 30 kids, walking down the road and so on, and I would tend to be toward the front, so I could look back and see, we started out as a nice tight bunch, and I'd look back and we were spread out for half a mile. It's just so that was my experience, and so I had to invent the bottleneck, as we were calling it at the time, and that was Herbie. And Herbie, I shouldn't spoil it for everybody, but
well, we assume most people have already read the book.
Okay.
So yeah.
So Herbie was slow. He was naturally slow, and he had all kinds of extra weight associated. So he would. So anyway, yes, he became the bottleneck, and Alex's brilliant stroke was putting him at the front, and then because he was the slowest, and after that everything tightened up. So
and the story in the goal. Were there other stories that were cut out because Goldratt didn't like it, or you decided it didn't really work? Is there something we missed out on?
As I recall, he went along with pretty much everything I did, but there were a lot of technical changes to make it conform, which is fine, make it conform to his concept.
And the name, you mentioned that this is when the phrase bottleneck was being created. Is that exactly it? During when you were writing the book, that is when bottleneck started to be used?
Yeah. Well, he was using it independently of the book. But yeah, I think it was maybe the first time that that was broadly presented. So.
And the title of the book, where did that come from?
I came up with that all. We didn't have a title until the end, and as I was writing the final chapter, I got to call it something, So I just came up with the goal, and here we are today. So.
And when coming up with the name, were you aware, or did you feel in your gut that this will be a global bestseller?
No, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. I would have bargained a lot harder if I'd had that.
So what was it like later on when you found out that actually this is a big hitter?
I was pretty annoyed. Goldratt was not a nice guy. And he wasn't a fair guy either. He's passed on, so I can be a little more
to the point.
Forthright in my opinions. As I say, he was difficult, but he could also be. He really did follow the truth. I mean, he looked for that, and he ripped things apart conceptually, and then put them back together again. I mean, he would spot the misconceptions and the assumptions and so on, and he would root out the dumb ones, and there were a lot of those.
Yeah. And how about later on, because you wrote the book within the goal, but then with others you were not involved. Do you regret it? Would like to have been part of it?
Well, there was a financial dispute. He didn't pay something that I was expecting to be paid. I was living hand to mouth at the time. It wasn't like I was being greedy. I just resolved that I wasn't going to work with him again. He came back to me in the mid-'90s. It was before he wrote, or had someone else write, Critical Chain. And I just flat out turned him down. I had another major... I had a book that turned out to be very good and lucrative, and so I said, no, I'm not interested, after the way he had treated me, and others, I might add.
So which book was that, the one that you were happy with, lucrative?
There was Zap, and then there was Heroes, and they were both, those were both six-figure, in compensation to me, so...
Yeah. Okay, nice. Do you still continue to write novels?
Well, I'm trying.
Anything on your mind at the moment you would like to write about?
It'll probably be... I'm into politics. I mean, I don't get involved in politics, but I'm interested in politics. There's a lot of bad or inappropriate terminology used. And it would be interesting to explore that, as why, why is it this way?
That would be fascinating to read a novel about politics.
Yeah. There was one called Primary Colors. It was anonymous. And that was probably 20 years ago. And that's I read that. That was pretty interesting. And it was fiction, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, I must read it then.
Okay.
I haven't read it, yeah. Let's get a copy of that. And also, if you don't mind, if we talk about Stand Back,
Sure.
because we did write a book as well, which is due to be published. And I can just run a quick introduction. I wrote to Jeff asking whether we could write a book, and Jeff said, well, basically, you're semi-retired, but for the right project, you're willing to get back into writing, and he said that this is a good contender. So indeed, we did meet up literally at this table in 2019,
Right.
and yeah, we then continued working together. So Jeff, did you like the idea initially?
Yes, I did.
Do you still like the idea?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a very valuable concept, set of concepts, really.
Yeah, and did you find it difficult, like comparing it to the goal? Was this much easier to write about in terms of the concept? How would you compare them?
I would say it's about the same. You know, it was. You know, it wasn't easy, and I'm not. You know,
Yeah.
not floating my own boat on anything, but you know, it's just. It was interesting, and it was also difficult to write. So.
But then when you were writing about business owners, did that also bring up memories from your own experiences, seeing others struggling in a business that works only because the owner's there?
Yeah, I've known a number of people like the original Bob in the book, and yeah, definitely it rung true to me. And
Well, yeah, Jeff, I mean, I can't thank you enough. The work that you've done with the goal has changed, well, my life definitely. I help others as well by teaching and sharing the knowledge and wisdom about the theory of constraints. The book, The Goal, is about it. And all the other work you've done. So a big thank you from all of us readers for your work. And obviously we hope you, and fingers crossed, you come up with more content, because we just love reading your books.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. I hope you found the interview fascinating. To me, it was an honor to be able to talk to Jeff. And bear in mind that Jeff doesn't necessarily volunteer to give interviews. And I think this was actually the first interview. So we are very lucky that we managed to interview him and find out how the global bestseller came to life. Now, thanks for staying on, because the secret that I've got to reveal to you, and you've probably already found out watching the end of the interview, that me and Jeff, we've teamed up together and created a book called Stand Back to Grow. It is obviously a business novel, so it's very easy to read, and it is also a game-changing concept. It is addressed at overwhelmed business owners, managers, executives who have built a business around them or the team around them. Therefore, they are the business. And if you take that person out, there's nothing left. Now, the worst thing is that that person lives in constant overwhelm. Everything is addressed to that person. There's a lot of information bombarding that person, and it comes to a point where it's unbearable. The problem is that that person cannot disappear, can't take even a breather, because so many people depend on that person. And obviously I've been there, I've learned it the hard way, and then through various sort of business courses around the world, I've managed to stand back myself, and this is my way of giving back to the humankind, to show that there is a better way. So Stand Back to Grow is about being able to stand back from your own business so that it can continue to work without you having to be there every single day. This means that you regain your life, and trust me, that is one of the most beautiful feelings. The other thing is, and it's actually a bit surprising, that if you remove yourself from that position, suddenly you unblock the constraint. Talking about constraint, therefore the company can grow. So like for me, when I introduced all these concepts, I had probably around 5, maybe 8 employees. And then suddenly, because of all the things that I've implemented, we were able to grow to over 40 employees. So please go and get this book. It's available as paperback, hardback, ebook, and also as an audiobook. So whatever format suits you, please read it, and if you enjoy it, I'll be very grateful for a 5-star review so that we can help promote it so it reaches other people that really need it. Thank you, and speak soon.